برانو ایوادوالو دیاسپوری خواهر و برادرای عزیز در قدم نخست توفیق پیشوای بشریت خدمتتان ارائه میکنم. السلام علیکم و رحمت الله و برکاته. از جهت از اینکه بتانیم تمام نسل دوم و سوم افغانا در این بحث اشتراک داشته باشن، من به اجازهتان به انگلیسی صحبت میکنم ځکه پس ته به بیا په دري او پښتو برابر کړي. It is an honor and a privilege to participate in this virtual international conference, a first of its kind that we hope will become the foundation of a series of exchanging for securing our future as a nation and a state in a fast-changing world. It is truly with humility that I want to thank you, both Irada and the Center for Afghanistan's Policy, for your excellent organizational work. And let me thank every participant, every sister and brother, and particularly the younger generation that have grown away from their place, the place of birth of their fathers and mothers, for their love, regard, and solidarity with their fellow Afghans. A nation is a moral community. It's a community of sentiment. It's a community of solidarity. It's a community that shares pain, in hope or balanced, because it's that special feeling in the heart that makes us a nation, a feeling that we uniquely, by history and by choice, belong together. That's what constitutes a nation. And what I've repeatedly stated, it's again my privilege to state, the diaspora, the Afghan diaspora, constituting around 20% of our people, is a constitutive and vital component of the Afghan nation. Let me repeat. In 1978, when the coup happened, over 99% of the people of Afghanistan were living in Afghanistan. Today, the Afghan nation consists of those who live in the territory of Afghanistan and who belong to it by sentiment. And let us be clear, no Afghan citizen, men or women, can be deprived of Afghan nationality. God has granted you that right. The Constitution of Afghanistan has granted you that right. And we are proud of you. We are proud of your accomplishments as individuals, but we are especially proud of your accomplishment collectively. A silver lining of the tragedy of the last 43 years is the immense human capital, financial capital, intellectual capital that has been formed by Afghan diaspora. This is indispensable for the future growth, well-being, solidarity of our people. From August 26, 1977, when I left for a planned 2 years to do my doctorate at Columbia University, but stayed on till December 26, 2001, I was a member of the diaspora. So I feel with you. And let me share a couple of memories. In 1998, I was in Moscow. I woke up at 2 briefly and looked at the BBC. It was 2 a.m. I saw 2 minutes of a program that was tracing Alexander the Great through Afghanistan. And that segment was on the Valley of Andarab, where the First Lady and I had spent a week on horseback. The rest of the night, I could not sleep. And you know what was some of the most painful things for me? When I was at the World Bank, I traveled repeatedly to the subcontinent. It was flying over Afghanistan, where I had walked, where I had climbed mountains, where I'd ridden in horsebacks and trucks and others. The memories would flood in. The pain can be unbearable, but you are directing the pain productively because your solidarity moves us to appreciation. And I'd like to say thank you multiple times because you deserve it. First, thank you for caring. Thank you for your remittances. Thank you for your game-shaping advice during the first 2 waves of COVID-19 and the current wave. In my speech to the WHO a couple of weeks ago, I contrasted the exceptionally productive advice that the Afghan diaspora gave me and the Afghan medical community and compared to the constant failures of some of the international organizations. The tragedy of oxygen is a product of that type of neglect. But you, night and day, I'm exceptionally moved that in a lot of our virtual discussions, you're wearing your overalls and we're coming from the operating theaters. Thank you for your advice on digitalization. Ms. Elaha Umar is here. We're benefiting immensely from her focus and advice on digitalization. Thank you for forming IRADA and the Policy Institute. Especially thank you for drafting the diaspora policy. Thank you for being here today. I can go on, but a permanent student needs to stay within his allotted time. When I was teaching, I would time my students 2 minutes, 5 minutes, and 15 minutes. That's instilled in me. I think you've allowed me 15 minutes, so I'd like to remain within that time. I'd like to now turn to the diaspora policy. First, a general picture. The diaspora matters. China, Ireland, and India stand out for exceptionally well-developed policies regarding their diaspora. India was a latecomer, but is now, what's the result? In 2016, China received a whopping $62.7 billion from its diaspora. India received $61 billion from its diaspora. The digitalization of Ireland, China, and India would have been impossible without the networks of diaspora and the intellectual capital that came with it. "25 countries, developing countries, received between 8.5 to 32.2% of their GDP from the diaspora remittances. And the welfare impact of this is enormous. Therefore, the second issue is getting the diaspora policy right matters. We need the right policy in order to get the right outcomes. And I'll return back to the issues that you've highlighted. Third, getting human capital right matters. We need to think networks and not just organizations. You are the greatest manifestation of the power of networks because problem solving can harness collective wisdom and collective effort. And particularly, we need your help with digitizing the government, digitizing the economy, but particularly digitizing society. Because without a full digitalization program, we will not be able to harness the intellectual capital and the immense wealth of ideas and methods that you have. There's a book recently published called Beyond Great. And it shows that a firm like Tata Consulting Services will be doing 60% of providing 60% of its services online. The old way of technical assistance is out of date. We need to work with you, and this is important. The other issue, and this requires discussion, wide discussion, the right national models, mental models matter. It is extremely important, fellow Afghan citizens, that the diaspora is not caricatured, and particularly your contribution is not slighted. This, we do have a historical problem of the mental models that think wealth is limited, the size of pie is limited, so therefore any distribution means a zero-sum game. Wealth is indefinite. We need to shift models, as you know much better than me. Now countries are measured by the number of unicorns. Firms that because of intellectual capital go to $1 billion within a short period of time. The old model of wealth needs revision. Therefore, a compelling narrative on the diaspora's capabilities and capitals and commitment to Afghanistan's political stability, economic dynamism, and growth, in particularly social solidarity and cultural cohesion, needs to become part of the national dialogue and psyche. I will do everything in my power to create this enabling environment so we all can reinforce the bonds. I'd like billions of ties to exist between the Afghan diaspora and Afghans residing, and particularly hope that second and third generation of Afghans will join us in this. My colleagues and I therefore greatly welcome the draft policy, and I'm requesting the first Vice President to socialize it across all the social strata of our country. And in the wake of this international virtual conference, as soon as this third wave of Corona allows us, I would propose a national discussion on this policy so everybody is socialized within this. I'd like to place the priorities that you've highlighted, the 7 priorities within a framework. The fourth industrial revolution changes everything. We, unfortunately, were bypassed by the first industrial revolution, which was the transport revolution. The second, which was the revolution in power and electricity. The third one, which was computers. But now, with the fourth industrial revolution, we need to have combined development of all 4. In other words, our task becomes to produce a type of accelerated development that combines the benefit, but one does not need to replicate that. We can jump over a lot of things. We need to get the sequence right and focus on this. Our location, again, fellow Afghans, I think is our greatest asset. Afghanistan literally is at the heart of Asia. Iqbal got it right. Asia is but a body of water and earth, of which the Afghan nation is the heart. From its accord, the accord of Asia, from its discord, the discord of Asia. And today that we're witnessing and welcoming the departure of international military forces from Afghanistan, getting the regional connectivity is essential to both the well-being of Afghanistan and the future prosperity of Asia. So let me come to the briefly to the six priorities, five priorities, and then the institutional framework. On human capital, mobilization and transfer, I propose that we do this virtually, because for your information, probably this may come as a surprise or may not. I do about 90% of my interactions with the provinces and with the security forces now virtually. Again, COVID give us a jump in this forward in digitalization, as I mentioned. But what we need is a database of the capabilities and the amount of time that our colleagues in diaspora will have available. What you can do, particularly with education, higher education, human resource policy, human capital policy formation, I think can allow us to pass decades of paperwork and really move forward. Second is remittances. Here again, you've been enormously generous. I'd like to thank you from the bottom of my heart. The 1.6 billion from that you've been sending an estimated, and I think it's an underestimate. But the good news is several. One, the central bank in Afghanistan has become completely digital. So all 12 banks in the payment systems now are operating as a digital system. Within 2 months, we hope that 2 million shopkeepers will be brought into the system, so everybody in the mobile payment system. And salaries will equally go on this, but of course, we need to work together. What would be extremely important is how to move the housing market through your contributions. I'm willing to make any amount of land available for large-scale projects where diaspora can systematically empower their relatives, their communities, members of the security forces with organized processes. Because if the help is channeled, also I want to bring to your attention that the Afghan Post Office is now become one of the most effective organizations in the country. They are competing successfully with DHL, and on passports, they've signed an agreement with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs that can transfer passports to any Afghan anywhere in the world within the country. I don't want to elaborate, but remittances are really key. Instead of individualized impact, let's aim at collective impact. 6 of your cities now have very good framework plans, all prepared by the firm of Sasaki in Boston. So we can move on that. Another welfare impact. Particularly your assistance to female-headed household is greatly appreciated. Assets to the families of the martyrs of the security forces and children. The third area is direct investment facilitation. Our key constraint is lack of guarantees and insurance, and the slow development of the financial instruments. Sukuk or Mint is being developed in a future area. If you want to the task force, Governor Ahmadi is getting married, so he's not governor of the central bank, but the central bank is making credit available. For the first time, government employees, for instance, will be able to get credit for long-term purchase of housing, agriculture, and others. The area where we need your help desperately is in terms of agricultural insurance. We have a vicious cycle of floods and droughts, and now, fellow countrywomen and men, the cycle of drought from 33.5 years, estimated in 1970s, has been reduced to 5. Big floods, big drought that used to come every 100 years now comes as quickly as 8 to 10 years. We are focused on harnessing of our water resources, but most of the canal building globally has been extremely poor. The efficiency in South Asia of the World Bank finance projects is 15% over the last 40 years against 40% in California. Water, the environment requires new instruments, and this is crucial to get direct facilitation. Philanthropic contributions, Diaspora has developed that. I would like to frame this as the third sector, the nonprofit sector. And the nonprofit sector is huge. I've been writing in the past, I read about a couple of thousand pages because we were in a very unproductive discussion between the ministries, non-governmental organizations, philanthropic organizations. Here, there's an immense amount of competitive money. Unfortunately, government officials do not have the requisite skills to raise money that is competitive, whether it's from environmental funds, whether it's from philanthropy or others. If this were taught as the third sector, because it's here to stay with us, what I would request you, I'm proposing two things. One is a task force to produce a law on the third sector, the activities of nonprofit, and we would like some participation from the diaspora to help us frame this and move it forward, because the form of governance needs to be collaborative. It cannot be hierarchy. It needs to be. Second, I want to, in a short term, have a compact for 6 months for the remaining of the year with the non-governmental sector to enable us in return for mutual accountability and transparency, to allow the relaxing of the law. This is a crucial area, and again, you've picked on the absolutely right thing. Advocacy and image building. What is required at this moment is a narrative of can do. Yes, things are difficult, but my emphasis, I hope you've seen it in my article in the Foreign Affairs, in my interviews, there are immense opportunities also. There's a psychologist who won the Nobel Prize in Economics, and what he demonstrated, Kahneman, is that when a condition changes towards uncertainty, everybody focuses on threats. The majority of the people. We need to change the narrative. It's a narrative of immense opportunities. Your help in forging this narrative, but based on real policy decisions and on real programs, is extremely important. Because fundamentally, there are three key things. One, the determination of the Afghan people across the board not to go back, not to allow the 1990s to be repeated. We lost $240 billion, according to the World Bank, between 1978 and 2001. We're not going to allow the destruction of our social capital, our institutions, and others. Second is a golden bridge to peace. We need to think peace day and night despite the war and make peace possible. This, again, requires particularly a rights-based approach. The second chapter of the Constitution can only be amended if the rights of men and women, boys and girls, and all the citizens are improved, not rejected. And the third thing, it really is, the goal is a period of immense opportunity for the region and for our international partners to forge a new chapter. We are taking all the burdens of their security, and we'll do it willingly, but it needs to be framed as a time-based condition, as a conditional-based approach to assistance. We don't want charity. A lot of aid is ineffective I've been on record, but we need a modality that can mobilize our capitals. I mean, just take the INAC. If the Australians had been granted INAC instead of the people that granted it, today Afghanistan would be a leader in green industry. Again, we are having proposals on this. Our mining sector will move. The precious stones, because the exports were legalized, now are growing by leaps and bounds. So I've missed one. Human capital. So, yes. On the institutional framework, I endorse all your constructive suggestions, and I'm looking very much forward to its realization. I have a request. My request is to take the empowerment of women, youth, and the poor, and people in poverty, and especially vulnerable categories of your fellow Afghans as cross-cutting themes. This is a period where all the diaspora needs to stand with the women of Afghanistan. We've done a significant amount to open it up at the top. Unlike other countries, the glass ceiling at the top doesn't exist. The middle is very thin. And then, teachers, nurses, others are coming in. The younger generation of Afghan women needs support from you. They're remarkable. We had that tragedy of Sayyid al-Shuhada, where our girls were butchered, and it was deliberate. The school had 2 shifts. The morning shift was for boys. The afternoon shift was for girls. They attacked the shift on girls, and not only did they hit the school with a car bomb, they planted mines on the exit routes. But you know what a group of Afghan young girls did? They went and climbed Koi Baba, Shafuladi, and the same week to show that Afghan girls are capable of climbing the second highest mountain in this country. And they've conquered one after another, and they use that language. The second group, or the youth. The youth of Afghanistan need to have hope. And hope goes to employment. And particularly where you are vital is to create 21st century jobs for them. Coding, digitalization, the new type of economy, because the old economy will only go so far. The third are the poor. The people who have always guarded this country have been the poorest. Because both by inclination, but also because of necessities, their movement is very difficult. Vulnerable categories are those who suffer from various kinds of disability. I call them different types of abilities, but it's crucial. And female-headed households, again, fall within this category. Where is the specific opportunity? Let me conclude with that. We're designing 8 national programs. These programs will be truly national in the sense that they will cover every district of Afghanistan. They will be aimed at all categories. And the budget will become the key instrument of realization of these programs. I've worked for some months. I've created a special balance scorecard because most of the balance scorecard was done for the private sector to adapt it for the public sector. It's a draft. We would like to engage you both in design and thinking through implementation, but particularly harnessing of big data, monitoring ways that can be done to a lot of new instruments of governance. The focus of these 8 programs is simultaneous. State building, market building, peace building, all in the service of nation building. Because a nation, if the community of sentiment that you all represent is going to be reinforced, they also need to have a sense of participation and a sense of provision of services. Biam this little kumina manana da uraz na zarkalaikum tia wakan marga urazda te tasipul pada لومړی بین‌المللي کنفرانس کې ټول سوي ما صمیم قلب از تنظیم کننده از اراده و انستیتوت پالیسی افغانستان و تمام اشتراک کننده ابراز امتنان میکنم. منتظر کار گروپیتان هستیم و امید دارم که با هم افغانستان را به وجود بیاریم که نسل‌های آینده ما با آرامی با اطمینان در توسعه در امنیتش در ثباتش و خاصتا در استفاده از زیباییش سهم بگیرن. یکی از افتخارات میز که تانستیم میراث فرهنگی افغانستان تا حد زیاد زنده بسازیم و کار ما در اون بخش دوام داره. در یک بخشم همراه شما باید کار کنیم که ما چیز نو در نساختیم اما کلش احیا شده. مساجد عمده افغانستان احیا شده، بالایسای تاریخی افغانستان زیر کار است و فرهنگ ما به اندازه غنی است که یک بار که انشالله تعالی در اینجا صلح و امنیت بیاید میلیاردها دلار از توریسم از دید و بازدید آمده میشه. خدای مساعد بیام ندینت ما تا موقع را کرده او دا ویارم را که دزلیل کومینه من نکو. The single honor in my life is to be a public servant. I have a very hard taskmaster, so I can close with a joke. My grandmother, God bless her, you know, who shaped me, will first read the Quran every morning for half an hour or an hour. But then she will take it on the servants or on her 6 sons for half an hour. My masters are the Afghan public, and they are like my grandmother. They love me, but they can also curse me. And all of it is of the same cloth, and I'm delighted to be representing a people who are against all odds, against all the atrocities, have a will to live, to work together, to love each other, and to be able to create an Afghanistan that can belong to all of us. Manana, tell the Afghanistan, Yashasan Afghanistan, Zindabad Afghanistan.